Atzeya, Aziranu, Kol Atzeya, Aziranu, Kol Atzeya, Aziranu, Kol Atzeya, Yachalo Sadai, Bechol Asher Bo Yachalo Sadai, Ay, ay, ay. Asher Bo Yachalo Sadai, ay, 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 ay. Lecha Dodi. Let us welcome the Sabbath bride into our midst tonight. Tonight, the way we're going to sing, we have done this way on occasion. And what we're going to do is we'll sing the song, the opening chorus, Lecha Dodi, Mikrat Kala. So come, let us welcome the Sabbath bride with joy and facing towards her. And then we sing the words Shabbat, Shalom, Umevarach. It's kind of a prayer we say to one another. We want it to be a Shabbat with Shalom, peace, and blessing, Umevarach, that is blessed. And then we'll weave into there Bo'i v'Shalom as well, which is the last stanza of Lecha Dodi. Let's try Lecha Dodi first. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabla, Nekabla, Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabla, Nekabla, Shabbat Shalom U'Mevorach. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom U'Mevorach. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom U'Mevorach. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabla, Nekabla. We rise together to welcome the Sabbath bride, and we're going to face towards the west. We can see where that is. One more time with Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabla, Nekabla, Bo'i v'Shalom. Bo'i v'Shalom, Ateret b'Chala, Gam b'Simcha u'Tzola. Tov emunei am segula, Bo'i chala, Bo'i chala. Facing forward, Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabla, Nekabla. Please be seated. Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat, a psalm for this day of Shabbat, with gratitude in our hearts. Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat, Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ולזמר לשמך העליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, עלי הסוף ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, עלי הסוף, עלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וחינוך. There are words in the middle of page 4 that call upon us with some obligation to praise the one who is to be praised with the words of Baruch Hu. We sing first with a nigun going into those words. We faced west, now we're going to be facing towards the east. I invite you to rise as you're able. First our nigun before the words of Baruch Hu. Watching the evening happen literally above our heads right now. God is the one who rolls the light into the dark and the dark into the light. And praise God is the Ma'ariv Harafim. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. יום ולילה, כולל אור מפני חושך, כולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור. Blessed are you, O God, the one who brings on the evenings and gives us eternal love. אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך תורה ומצוות, חוקים משפטים, אותנו למענך. Day and night show us the way, teaching us to number our days. When we rise and when we lie down, Ahavat Olam, Ahavat Olam, Beit Israel, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chokim Mishpatim, Otanu L'manechta. Blessed are you, O God, the one who is the Ohev Amo Yisrael, the one who has taught the people of Israel love. May we indeed find love in our hearts and between each other, just as God has modeled for us. And we can do so by listening. Shema Yisrael, listen, O Israel. Adonai is our God. Adonai is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malachuto Leolam Bad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה
אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטודפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, גיליתם קדושים אלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. When we think what it is to pray, and what we need to pray, sure there are words. We have them in our prayer booklet. Sure, there are times when we need to come and pray, and locations when we can come and pray. But the truth of the matter is, we need our hearts. We need a mind. We need a soul. And we need to slow down. And so as much as the words that we have in our prayer books matter, because they do, that's what these words help to define who we are as Jews and as individual worshipers. And yet, we're all each on our own prayer path. If we listen, just listen to what's around us, maybe that makes the words in the prayer booklet or in our hearts even easier to find. We need to be aware of our surroundings and what's going on. So let's take a moment of just quiet to listen. See if you can isolate or try to count how many different bird voices you might be hearing. When we came out of Egypt, we were surely a boisterous crowd with a lot of voices and a lot of fears and a lot of concerns, and there was a sea splitting and who knows else what was happening. But each individual Israelite had their own experience. Imagine what it was for you, because we all stood there. We all came up out of Egypt. What was that moment for you? Where can we listen individually for ourselves to the world around us and find a way to connect with what's around us and work for that moment of redemption for ourselves and our world as well?
כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נטל בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נטל בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, אדוני ומרים, זה לי ענו ואמרו, זה לי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. היי 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 היי
Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Blessed are you, O God, the one who has redeemed the people of Israel. In our prayer booklets, the words of Hashkivenu you can find in the middle of page 6. Our melody's a little, we've done this one a few times before. The words are very similar to what's going to be sung this evening. The English is where it changes a little bit. Hashkibenu, God, help us to lie down at night in peace. May we rise, O guardian, in good life in the morning.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim l'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim l'chaim Uferos aleinu sukat shlomecha Uferos aleinu sukat shlomecha Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim l'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim l'chaim May you shelter us in peace until the morning comes. May you shelter us in love and may you raise us up. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim l'chaim.
Blessed are you, O God, the one who spreads your shelter of peace upon us, upon the entirety of your people of Israel, and over your city of peace, Yerushalayim. Vishamnu, we are to be the guardians of this day of Shabbat.
Vishameru et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam vishameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We rise together as you're able for the words of the Amidah, which begin on page 7, and again we face towards the east.
Adonai sefatoi tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha Adonai sefatoi tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah זוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גאולה לבניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב וחושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש בשמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Shalom Rab al Israel. May there be great peace for all of Israel, your people, O God. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov b'einecha levarech et amecha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. Blessed are you, O God, Oseh HaShalom, the maker of peace. We take a moment of our own private prayers, and we'll come out from our silence with a prayer for those in need of healing. We are particularly mindful in our prayers for healing, for body and for soul. Claudia Zoran Schaefer, Libby Grubb, Jim Mabry, Danny Neely, Mimi Zucker-Struten, Beatrice Saperstein, Wendy Feldman, Jericho Belcher, Elaine Luthi, Jane Bozeman, Rodney Bozeman, Zelda Panina Bat Bracha Vatuvia, Gwen Reisman. There are other names, individuals you're thinking of at this time and would like to call their name out, please feel free to do so as my hand comes across our community. God, may you bring a healing of peace and well-being for body and for soul, for all who are sick, and whom we've remembered in our hearts and in our words. May there be healing soon and speedily in the days to come. And let us all say, Amen. I thought maybe if it was going to rain, maybe I would skip the sermon, but hey, it's nice out, so we're sticking, and you're here. So, okay. Listen, we as Jews debate. We know that. We actually pride ourselves on the ability and the openness to debate. Now, one of the classic disputes, disagreements, falling outs of Torah is in this week's parasha. The portion is even named for the captain of the argument, Korach. His name literally means ice. The Iceman cometh. Now let's set the stage. Torah says, Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kahat ben Levi, clearly a Levite, along with two sons of his neighbor, his name was Eliab, they're from the tribe of Reuben, decided to rise up against Moses with the support of 250 community leaders. They joined forces against Moses and Aaron, and they say, you've gone too far. Why do you raise yourself up over us? So, first, let's be clear. Moses and Aaron did not really ask to be leaders. God put them in place as the master teacher and as the ritual director, respectively. Moses hears about this rebellion, and in classic form, he falls on his face. He is dumbfounded, he's angry, he's hurt, he's lost for words, he's crestfallen. These are his landsmen, his people, and he replies, come morning, God will make known who God is and who's holy. Then Moses added and returned those words and said, you have gone too far, O sons of Levi. Is it not enough that God has set you apart from the community of Israel by having you perform the duties of the Lord's dwelling place? Will you seek priesthood too? Truly, you rebel against God. Now, none of this goes well for Korach and his crew. The earth will consume them, literally. There's fire and pyrotechnics and a very dramatic end for the rebel rousers as they fall into some kind of abyss. Now, we just don't see that kind of reaction today. Earth-swallowing response from God kind of moment. Now, I'm quite sure that there may be some of us who would like to see such things happen to people who try, illegally, to overthrow a government. I dare say that the rebel rousers who brought an insurrection upon our nation's Capitol building, some dressed in fur and Viking horns, and others carrying the symbol of rebellion, namely the Confederate flag, might be deserving biblically of some solid earth swallowing. But thankfully, we have a judicial system that I pray will hold responsible those who sought not only the cancellation of a legal election, but also the death of the sitting vice president. The message in Parashat Korach is clear. Proper authority and respect of it deserves respect. We are allowed to question, but so too we must accept decided opinions that are based on reasoned arguments. The Midrash tells us that Korach once took a talit made entirely of blue threads, namely the tchelet that we're commanded to use. Now, why is that relevant here? Because last week's Torah reading concludes with the commandment to have a single blue thread on the corners of our garments. So Korach confronted Moses at the beginning of this week's parasha, according to this Midrash, and the rabbis want to know what's on his mind. Here's the answer for the rabbis. Korach asked, if a talit, you're going to need to respond with an answer perhaps. If a talit is made entirely of the tchelet, of the blue threads, does it still need the blue thread, a single one, on the corner in the fringes? Yes. Yes, it does. Great. And Korach's answer to that was not great. He said, your laws are ridiculous. One blue thread on the corner makes the whole thing kosher? But if a garment as a whole has the blue threads in it, why is that not kosher? Now Korach pushed a little further and he said, if a room consists entirely of Torah scrolls, does it still need a mezuzah on the door, which is the parchment with verses from Torah that talk about it, right? And Moses answered, And Korach replies, your laws are absurd. One parchment with 2 brief citations from Torah makes it kosher, but a room full of Torahs, it's not kosher on its own? With such arguments, Korach began the great rebellion against Moses. Now, it's not the questions. The questions are actually great questions. It's the attitude and the desire to rebel. It's the argument of the straw man. Korach doesn't have an authentic argument. The real subject is not being refuted. He's arguing to take Moses, down. It's reasonable to ask, who made Moses and Aaron leaders? It's the attitude that gets the earth-swallowing mechanism put in place. It's reasonable to ask, what constitutes a kosher garment or a kosher room? It's the attitude of brushing aside authority or interpretation that lead to the rabbi's response. And the rabbis are writing their midrash, perhaps, maybe, more than likely, to their contemporaries who are wondering what makes something, namely a behavior or a ritual or a teaching, kosher. At what level is questioning permissible, and when is it rebellious? I think we are forever trying to define borders and find places both to rebel and to make things right. We do it in our community. Think about the COVID rules that we set in place, that we had to create and respond and adapt to. We do it in our families. Think about how we define our own Jewish practice at home, or what behaviors are allowed or not allowed vis-a-vis a whole range of topics. We do it in our relationships with individuals. Think about conversations that expand openness and others that shut down communication. Now, before everything turns to earth tremors and the downfall of the rebels, we read in Numbers 16:25, and Moses arose and went to Datan and Aviram. Fascinating that Moses went to the rebels who were not from his own Levitical tribe. He went to the Reubenites, in other words, not Korach. By the way, side note, just because I have to put this in Cecil B. DeMille's 10 Commandments, Dathan, Datan, is played by none other than Edward G. Robinson. The G stands for Goldberg, because his original name was Emmanuel Goldberg. Fascinating side note. And the film conflates the whole golden calf with this whole Korach episode. Just, that's another time we can talk about that. So this Dathan person is important, but gets a really bad rap in Cecil B. DeMille's movie. In the Talmud, we read, Reish Lakish says, well, of course he gets a bad rap because he is Datan, he's part of the rebellion. In the Talmud, we read, Reish Lakish says, from here, Moses going to Datan and Aviram, we derive that one may not perpetuate a dispute. As Rav says, anyone who perpetuates a dispute violates a prohibition, as it is stated that he should not be like Korach and his assembly as the Lord spoke by the hand of Moses to him. In other words, even the aggrieved party, Moses, must seek to end the dispute. Datan and Aviram accused Moses, and by rights should have initiated the reconciliation. Nevertheless, Moses was not insistent on this. He went to them. Rav Ashi says, also in Talmud, one who perpetuates a dispute is fit to be afflicted with leprosy, mitzorat. It is written there, in Numbers, by the hand of Moses to him, and it's written over there in the book of Exodus. We read this whole fancy moment you might remember from before we get redeemed, and Moses is going before, and Aaron are before the Pharaoh, and this whole, they put their hand into their hand, and it comes out white. Anyway, the rabbis are linking this one expression to him, and they say, oh, because it was by the hand to him that God delivers this message, if someone is not behaving right and is not seeking reconciliation, it is as if they are themselves getting mitzorat. They are bringing out a bad name for themselves, or, as can be translated certainly, directly, this leprosy. Poor behavior can cause disputes and even rebellion. It's fine to question and fine to enter into debates, but some debates and discussions are l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Namely, according to the rabbis, the debates between Hillel and Shammai, who work to understand each other and themselves. The debates and the divisions, like those of Korach, are deadly. They, according to the rabbis, are not l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, and thus are not sustainable. This week I read an op-ed in the Winston-Salem Chronicle about the recent conflict between Gaza and Israel. The op-ed was factually full of errors, and therefore very dangerous. 2 days ago, Congressional Representative Ilhan Omar equated the United States and Israel with the Taliban and Hamas. 2 weeks ago, John Oliver and Trevor Noah showed no nuance or understanding of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and essentially justified Hamas rockets while condemning Israel. Language about Israel with words of apartheid, colonization, racism, and ethnic cleansing are not only factually wrong, they are the classic signs of anti-Semitism as they demonize, delegitimize, and hold double standards for Jews, and namely the State of Israel. It is okay to question Israel, and it is okay to empathize with the Palestinians. It is okay to call for humane treatment of immigrants and to ask for secure borders for our country. It is okay to express concern for black and brown people, reallocation of resources for public safety, and acknowledging the racist realities of this nation. Us. The truest parts of the Bible are those we are living through right now. Self-righteousness, arrogant leaders, false accusations, and followers who support errant and misguided people who often have significant levels of influence and power. Korach is as real as we allow ourselves to admit that we are potentially of the same cloth. May we be the descendants of Aaron, seeking peace, and may our debates and divisions lead us to arguments that are for the sake of heaven and for the sake of humanity and humane treatment of one another. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will. May we make it our own as well. The words of Aleinu, we're on page 10. Rise as you're able, and again we face towards the land of Israel, towards the east.
עלינו לשבח ואדון הכל, לתת גדולה יוצא בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Please be seated. A reading not found in your prayer booklets. It's called A Philosophy of Life and Death. Judaism teaches us to understand death as part of the divine pattern of the universe. Actually, we could not have our sensitivity without fragility. Mortality is the tax that we pay for the privilege of love, thought, creative work, the toll on the bridge of being from which clods of earth and snow-peaked mountain summits are exempt. And just because we are human, we are prisoners of the years. Yet that very prison is the room of discipline in which we, driven by the urgency of time, create. We hold in our hearts and we remember those in our circle of love and life who have died in this past week. We are remembering at this time those who have died in this past year: Maurice Goldberg, Burton Frank Kramer, Robin Lynn Beebe, Kathy Maffey, Kay Burke Backer, Eva Black, Marsha Elizabeth Julian, Lois Buck-Levin, Ted Solzberg, Deborah Roseman, Daniel Ham, Marvin Gottlieb, Lee Smith, Jerry Epstein, Lois Burkle, Judy Seldes Peacock, Lexi Rubin Moore, Mordechai Wiesler, Jan Soderstrom, Peter Thull, Nancy Hellwood, Don Bendick, Alfredo Pauca, Richard Lee Roberts. And those for whom we're marking Yortzeit on this Shabbat: Robert Bernstein, Ray Baker Bloom, Ben Byer, Stephen Elbine, Frida Fern, Leafy Foreman, Rosalind Slovic Friedman, Ira Kerner, Alan I. Levine, Doris Weinberg Lovner, Anna Meshin, Marcia Levine Robin, David Savage, Joseph William Seiler, Charles James Simons, Muriel Ann Spellman, Stephen Wolf. If there are any other names to add to our list as my hand comes across our community. Zichronam Livracha, may their memory be for a blessing. We rise together for the words of Kaddish Tom on page 11. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemed kudusha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, uyasei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Amen. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens above make peace for us, for all of Israel, for all who live in our world, and for all who are bereaved and are remembering at this time. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. It's my pleasure to invite Karen Pranikoff on behalf of our Temples Board for announcements tonight.
Shabbat Shalom.
Even closer, like you're just going
Hear
right.
me?
Tilt it down.
Facing it.
Tilt it
And you
down.
can tilt it a little bit.
Tilt it down.
Down. There you go. Perfect. And just scream it.
Within a
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom!
Welcome to our members and guests joining us virtually and in person. Every Friday in June, outdoor in-person Kabbalat Shabbat services and still on live stream. Bring your own chair, as you all know. Socially distanced from other families. 50 can register in case of rain. We moved into the sanctuary. If the sky is clear, please join us outside. Registration opens each Monday for that week's service from Monday at noon through Friday at 10 a.m. Watch for registration emails each Monday. Shabbat for families with children ages 0 to 8 will be tomorrow, Saturday, June 12th, 5 p.m. Havdalah outdoor under the trees at Ronalda Gardens on the south lawn of the Ronalda House. Forestry made real. Wednesday, June 16th, there are 4 time slots every half hour from 3:30 to 5. Experience how a forest is managed and discuss sacred texts. 4 events over the next year, joint program with Highland Presbyterian Church. Forest is at home of members Jay and Joanne Mintz in advance. Registration is required. The COVID Recovery Task Force has updated rules, which is published on Wednesday's Staying Connected email. You want me to read the? Okay. Can lift, dress, and carry Torah, no kissing Torah. Sanctuary seating distancing now 3 feet. Social hall capacity now 50 can eat if all vaccinated, and vaccinated volunteers can return. Religious school registration is open via Chabad Web.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Great. Thank you, Karen. It's so funny to hear regulation like, don't kiss the Torah. Yeah, so and all that, probably Vivian was the chair of our committee. We're probably going to post that on our website also, I suspect, kind of an update in some regard. So great. Thank you to our COVID task force. Yes, welcome back, Golds from Alabama. We're glad to have you. Havdalah tomorrow at 5 if you can make it. No pressure. But Dojos is open till 6, I found out, which is great. So just that's a nice incentive. Any other announcements from the community that we need to know about, worry about, think about? Vivian, what you got? Barbara Zucker, come on down. I don't know. Maybe by the time we figure this announcement out, I'll have thought of something. You get to kiss the Torah. Yay! Come, just come around. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm Barbara Zucker, and I am chair of the transition team as we look to begin our search for a new rabbi. So what that means is that in the next couple weeks, you're going to see some emails about focus groups we're having. We want everybody, all ages, all types of connections to Temple Emmanuel, to participate in the focus groups so that we can hear your input and you can listen to each other about what we love about Temple Emmanuel and what we want to keep doing, and then ways we can grow and change as we have a new rabbi. So look for the emails. You'll be able to sign up for some, and we're going to make sure they're very diverse groups, and we want your input as much as possible. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Barbara. Thank you, Barbara. Yes, and I'm very grateful. I know it's a kind of a funny thing to all of a sudden you're announcing transition, and I'm still standing here. But that's what we do in the rabbinic world. Like we all know that's how it is. Any other announcements that we wanted to make before we say Kiddush together? Great. Then let's all stand together. We're imagining a Kiddush cup in our hands. We're going to do a group Kiddush. You got your Kiddush cup, Jason?
Right here,
All
overflowing
right,
with
then.
blessings.
There you go.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafel.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. בשבת קדשו ויבוא ורצון הנחין לנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים קיבלנו בחרת ואותנו גירשת מכל העמים בשבת קדשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen.
Chaim. So we took care of Kiddush. Candles, you're on your own. You do that when you get home. Challah, you're going to do on your own. Oh, wait a second. We have snacks, dessert, oneg, a to-go neg, provided by Liam Hooper, Diana Coe. Thank you very much for that. So we've got a blessing, Borei Minei Mizonot, for these wonderful, delicious treats.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei minei mizonot.
Ben, we're going to try to do a little Oseh Shalom again out here. So if you want to play with the camera a little bit, we're coming out to you. We're going to circle around a little bit so we can see each other. All right. How's that? Is that an idea?
Shalom aleinu.
I was ready to go. I've got the medley. Listen, Korach is all kinds of problematic, and it turns out so are we. Because we're Jews, these are our people, and so we can identify. Wait a second, Korach, what's so bad? Because it is all right to ask questions, and that's what we do. Was that a bad? With a head like this, I'm not surprised. We're coming for you next, David. This is what we do. We ask questions, but that sense of what's right, how do we build together? Imagine how that community had to go. Like, what happened after the earth swallowed? What happened next there? How did that go for the community? We know how it's going to go because we make it. We clearly make it to the promised land. But we're still in that mode at times in our world, whether it's in America or in Israel, or just in our own community, or in our families and in ourselves. We have that division. So we can look at it, try to understand it, and please God, open arms to one another to heal as the very best. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to Diana and Liam for the Oneg, and to our COVID committee that has creatively figured out how we can keep doing this. And it didn't I know, I felt the drop. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We'll be back outside. Please come.
To Karen, hand in your prayer.
Right, and then Diana and Liam, if you want to get all this out to everybody, would be great. So watch out, the Takonig is coming your way. Thank you, Ben. I'm taking one. Thank you. I'll take one for Harley. There we go.
Jason, you get two?
I can share with Karen. I got one. Okay.
Thanks, Lee.
We love you guys.
Love you. Thank you so much.
We
Good
miss you.
Shabbat.
Yeah, good Shabbat.
I like your shirt.
Thank
I
you.
was
I
looking
almost
online.
wore my shirt the same color as yours.
Yeah. I'm looking online. I was like, I need more summer wear. You know, I have all these long sleeve shirts. I need summer wear.
I noticed that all my dress shirts are long sleeve. I'm like, what is up with that? What was I thinking?
Gotta
I have like
remember-
two. I have this one and the other one.
And even when you go inside in the summer, it's still
I know.
hot.
It's like, yeah.
So,